The propaganda is on every channel. They think we stupid like the truth is just too hard to handle. Put on your camo, it's a culture war and load the ammo. They want Antifa ruling everything like it's Seattle. And they want anyone who's fighting to be dead and canceled. They want rainbows in the classrooms and 15 different bathrooms and white guys that hate black dudes. They want war, they don't want peace. They want fentanyl in our streets. They want borders to be weak. I swear the devil lives in California. He a politician. He passing bills that bring chaos and division. Yeah, the devil lives in California. Should be in prison. He got horns, but he tries to keep them hidden. Cause the devil is a Democrat. And we don't play that. They say that. They love America. We know it ain't that. The devil is a Democrat. And we ain't with it. We ain't switching. Y'all are tripping. I guess God just built us different. They get celebrities to do they talking. They get mansions while they cram us all into apartments. Tell us it's cool to stay in school and then make you retarded. If you ain't liberal, then they treat you like you human garbage. If you speak up, then you a target. They want their voice through an amplifier. Violence and our flag on fire. No voter ID required. They want war, they don't want peace. They want defund the police. They want you surrounded by screens. The devil lives in California. He a politician. He passing bills that bring chaos and division. Yeah, the devil lives in California. Should be in prison. He got horns, but he tries to keep them hidden. Cause the devil is a Democrat. And we don't play that. They say that. They love America. We know it ain't that. The devil is a Democrat. And we ain't with it. We ain't switching. Y'all are tripping. I guess God just built us different, dog. The devil is a Democrat. That's a fact, that's the truth. Look how bad that it gets when it's blue. The devil is a Democrat. That's a rap, it ain't news. And the way they treat America is proof. I swear the devil lives in California, $100 bills. He knows everyone in Hollywood and parties in the hills. Give you everything you ever wanted, plus a couple mil for your soul and your vote, it's a deal. Cause the devil is a Democrat. And we don't play that, they say that. They love America, we know it ain't that. The devil is a Democrat. And we ain't with it, we ain't switching. Y'all are tripping, I guess God just built us different, dog. The devil is a Democrat. And we don't play that, they say that. They love America, we know it ain't that. The devil is a Democrat. And we ain't with it, we ain't switching. Y'all are tripping, I guess God just built us different, dog. The devil is a Democrat.
Wow. Our producer, Jay, came up with a really wild intro for today's show. That's Tom McDonald. And I have to admit, I've only seen that video twice before today. Very, very, very impressive. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, tonight is supposed to be Straight Talk Report with me, Kirk Kayer, and my usual co-host, Reddog, but he's missing, and we don't know where Reddog went. The question is, where's Reddog? Anyways, we're going to get started off today's show with round 2 with a previous guest. And all I can tell you is this previous guest joined us a few weeks ago. And since then, we were, I know our numbers have been very significant because people were really curious. And much like, excuse me, that show, right after our show is completed, definitely by tomorrow morning, we will have the podcast up and I will have the supporting documents from this interview linked on the archives on HHG Radio as well. So without further ado, let's see if we can't get, well, we don't know where Reddog is. We'll get to, we will find Reddog. We're going to put out search parties, hopefully more efficient than our current government. But anyways, my guest for tonight's show, as we've had previously, is Ellen Alston, and I'd like to welcome Ellen to the show.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we have her. Hello, Ellen.
How's my volume? Because I'm just playing with volume on my computer.
Oh, well, you know, at the end of the day, it works for me. And if Jason hasn't, listen, Jason played that Tom McDonald song. He can figure out what your volume is on his end. All right. We'll make sure of things. So what you're back. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Well, we've
you
got
look nice tonight. You've got a jacket on.
Oh, well, it's just because I'm styling, getting ready for today's show.
I love it.
I know that one of the things we wanted to do today was just see what kind of feedback you got from the last show, but you also have a whole lot of other things to cover.
Yes, I do. I'm going to move on to the next stage of what
You're
we
just
did.
going to get right into it? Okay, bring it on, girl.
Oh, and the feedback?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, one of my colleagues was watching on Facebook, and the comments were amazing. And I haven't gotten onto Facebook because I shut Facebook down a long time ago, but he did. And there was a huge number of comments, and every one of them were positive. I didn't get any. I thought I'd get a bunch of trolls like, who the heck do you think you are? Because I got a couple of letters when I sent a letter out, but everything was so positive. And I have to tell you, Kirk, that made me feel so good. Because when you're bringing this kind of information forward to the public, you go, am I going to get shot? No.
Yeah.
I think what I heard was public consciousness is a lot higher than what I had imagined. How do you feel about that?
Well, we sure got asked an awful lot of questions about, I guess it's not the veracity of the information, because the evidence we did post, but what was really the question was how come there was so much? Like, the breadth of our conversation went fairly deep. And as we were going through it and we said, and there's more, a lot of the people I spoke to said, how much more could there possibly be? So when I told them lots, they were in shock. I said, don't worry about it. In this show, we're going to keep it nice and easy, go through some of the basics. We won't go as long. I said that if we had to, we'd cut videos in of Jason dancing behind the scenes, but not me, because I'm more shy than that. And then we'd also tell people that if they want to make comments, they can pop in and make comments. We'll acknowledge that we can. And don't forget, if you can, support us by sending stars. I think Jason wanted me to make sure I said that, for either HHE Radio or Alberta Radio. Either one works. But Ellen, let's get started. Very cut to it. Where do you want to go?
All right. I got a lot of comments too. Documentation, devil's in the detail, right?
Yeah.
You can make lots of allegations, but the devil's in the detail. So what have I got for you tonight? Because I think we have to cut to the chase. I've been listening to your shows and you're saying, this has to stop. This is what we've got to do. All right. I'm going to give you a lot of facts and documents tonight to prove the corruption in our current government, to prove that all parties involved know exactly what they're doing. Because when you see this stuff, you think, you've got to be kidding. I heard you laugh a few times like, Ellen, come on. There's no way that. Well, I've got the documentation to prove it. I've got the documentation here to prove criminal negligence on behalf of our politicians and their minions. I've got the documentation here to prove political and RCMP cover-up and obstruction of justice. Let's get to the chase. I've got the documentation here to prove government fiscal fraud, and I've got the documentation here to prove judicial cover-up and obstruction of justice. That's our justice system. Last time I gave you guys a lot of documentation. I'm going to do it again tonight, and I hope it helps, because luckily everything I say, I've got a piece of paper, more actually boxes, as you know, because I want everyone to know there's boxes and boxes behind the 17 documents that you will be downloading at the end of the show. But I got to tell you, Kirk, you're not going to like what I tell you. Because I heard you say, let's all write to everybody. Writing to anyone in the government does nothing. And I'm going to prove that tonight. We need different solutions. and we need people to help us do it. I've provided Jason, and Jason, thank you for all your help, with an index of the documents that prove the statements that I'm making today. I'm just going to ask for a few big ones to be posted because Kirk told me I could only have 5. And I've got 17 and I've got boxes behind us. So let's get started. We've got a lot of hard facts to cover. Kirk, do you want to ask me anything before I get going? Because once I get going, you know that I'm a little bit of a machine. Anything?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, part of this process is to wake up people to the information that it's out there. It's not hidden, it's actually out there. But they actually have to accept the information and then come to their own conclusions. So quite frankly, Ellen, you just get started. People can make up their own minds and review the information, make sure they come up with the same conclusions, yes or no, and then we'll get to them with more things to do in future broadcasts.
Actually, I've got a lot of documentation and proof of what I outlined, but I've got solutions at the end, okay?
Fantastic. All right, well, let's get started.
All right, the first thing I want to do is just take 1 minute of who I am and why I got into this. I owned a property. I purchased a property in 97 down in De Winton. Soon as my husband and I moved onto that property, we got sick and we couldn't get any answers. So we consequently found out that the property was contaminated by an animal source horse facility right across the way, 3 feet higher than us, right directly at our well. And we went for public help. We got none. We have been 15 years in it. And that opened the door for me to do the research of what's going on. If I can't get help, is it just personal? Is it just one instance? No, it wasn't. So Jason, thank you. You put the very first document up that I wanted. And it's an article in the Western Standard by Hannaford. And it says, Smith says Ottawa won't respect the law. And that's our problem. It's a little hypocritical. As a matter of fact, it's kind of talking about the pot calling the kettle black. I don't know. Am I too old for that statement?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. And Smith is constantly stating that Ottawa is engaged in overreach of the law. So I'm here tonight to see what's really going on inside of Alberta regarding government compliance to the law. We've got a binder of legislation. I showed it to you.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. Don't worry. I'd drive everybody crazy if I did that. But I can tell you there's one well in excess of 150 statutes of Alberta legislation that's being breached by the Smith government. Jason, would you please put up number 2 for me? Okay. And that is a partial list of legislation breached by the Smith government. Jason, can you throw that up on the screen? Are you
Get to it. The next one. There we go.
Okay, there it is. You can't read it. That's okay. It's going to be downloaded. So I'm going to summarize it really quickly. Oh, the thing, I got to tell you, this has been an incredibly difficult, unbelievable process that I've gone in, but it's made me a legal beagle, and it taught me how to read the law. I'm going to start with the Environmental Protection and Enhancement Act, RSA 2000, and the purpose of the act, for everyone listening, because people have come to me about it, is the responsibility of polluters to pay for the cost of their actions. Have a nice day. You got to do it. The next part of it is release of substances generally. No person shall knowingly release or permit the release of a substance into the environment in an amount or level that is expressly prescribed by an approval, a code of practice, or regulation. What's that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you something. It doesn't mean anything, because in Alberta, there are no codes of practice or regulations. The Lock End project, which I went into in the last show, where they took a look at a deep dive into the fracking north of Cochrane. When you read through that, and that is in the documents that I left you guys last time, they got to the ERCB. The ERCB admitted they knew they had a problem, but they didn't know what the substances were, and they didn't know how much was going in, and they had no standards. Have a nice day. Okay, duty to report a release. That's section 110. Here's the big thing. A person having control of the substance, in other words, the MD of Foothills 31. How about the Environmental Protection, EPA of Alberta? How about all the ministers in charge, where the reporting person is not the person having control, and knows is readily able to ascertain the identity of the person having control? They gotta report it to the authorities. Nobody does anything. Any other person who the person reporting knows or are to know may be directly affected by the release. So I'm going to give you a little side handle. This is really funny. When I went to court, I got a contempt of court order on me for $6,000 by our case management judge, Michelle Hollins, because Brownlee lawyer said, we don't want Ellen Alston writing to the counselors of the MD of Foothills 31. Well, my lawyer had told me that most often the lawyers for the defense don't tell their client the truth or give them any information. So I have the Environmental Protection Act that says I have a duty to report to the people who are control, right? Justice Hollins put a contempt order on me against a law, and that's illegal. And I couldn't do anything about it. The next, of course, is liability of public officials. I'm just going to tell you, everybody can read it. Bottom line, all of our public officials are liable. They all thought they had immunity. Have a nice day. They can't. The only way they can get out of it is if they didn't know, and that's why I was writing everybody. And the other, if they did it in good faith. Well, how do you let a water course in a public area contaminating someone's property and you allow it to continue, and that's in good faith? Well, you can't do it, right?
Not possible.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so they can't, but nobody enforces the law. The Municipal Governance Act of 1977 and the Municipal Governance Act of 1980 to current says you can't develop land that's on a floodplain. What happened in 2013? Why did all of downtown Calgary go underwater? They did it because all the development was on a known floodplain that's in the Alberta, Canada Floodplain Reduction Act. It was even noted in there, right? Okay, they've breached all those. And by the way, they've breached the Alberta Agricultural Act, the Alberta Water Act, the Alberta Health Act, Section 19, duty to inform the public of a health emergency. We went to Alberta Health and they wouldn't tell anybody on the watershed that our property was contaminated. And if we're all on the same bloody aquifer, you got to tell me why that isn't an emergency. Also, the Waterkerton Report of 2004 informed the public of a drinking water health risk. Hello. And the 1989 Canada-Alberta Flood Reduction Agreement, where everything was written. Okay, Jason. Now, The next part of it is the Criminal Code of Canada. So, okay, there's all the legislation they've breached. It's a public health act. We would have died if we stayed there. What does the Criminal Code of Canada say? It's criminal negligence. That's what it says. Everybody who knew. Everyone who undertakes or has authority. The ministers, the premier, the directors of Environmental Protection Act, the directors of the health authority who we went to.
The municipalities, for a fact.
Oh, give me a break. They are under a legal duty to take reasonable steps to prevent bodily harm to that person or other persons arising from the work or task. That means every elected official and government employee who was contacted by our millions of letters and was fully informed of the breaches of any of the above legislation is criminally negligent. Have a nice day. Love and kisses. All the statutes of the Alberta courts.
In case you're wondering, your sarcasm is a wonderful throw-in. Just letting you know.
So I can do that?
Please keep going. Yep.
Okay. All right. Here's the first question that I came up with. I'm not the smartest one in the pack, but I'm not stupid. And this is what I couldn't figure out. Does the Conservative UC government know the environmental law and what they're doing? Is this deliberate? I wrote the law in every letter that I sent. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt. If they didn't know it, well, what the heck? They didn't know it. But I put the statutes in. The proof is in documentation. Letters between us and the politicians and government employees. Letters. We've got binders of letters that we sent. It's embarrassing. I became a gnat in their side. I'm just going to give you a couple examples. And yes, the politicians and government bureaucrats knew exactly what they were doing. Because remember, I started with, do they know? Well, yeah. Because if we haven't written them and we haven't given them the statutes, there's nothing we can do, right? They knew. They had everything proving the contamination, and they did nothing about it. In 2010 to 15, we wrote multiple letters to every level of government. We wrote to Prentice, we wrote to Kenny, and of course, we've written to Smith. Now listen to this. This will grow hair on your head, sweetheart. In 2011, our lawyer, Alan J. Satin, requested a FOIP, Freedom of Information of Records, on the investigation done by Alberta Environment. Because they fluffed around, and then, of course, they shut everything down, right?
Yeah.
All we got was fully redacted records. It's kind of like the Epstein files. No names, no victims, no nothing, right?
Yeah.
Jason, you don't have to put this up, but I'm telling people, document 4 is a recent article. Now listen to this. I couldn't believe it. I just got it the other day in August 25 from the Western Standard. Exclusive. Alberta grants ministers more power to reject access to information requests. It's been passed through the legislature. They just shut down FOIP. So that means all the people that are going after trying to get information. Oh, I did do it. I did it. Okay. There it is. So FOIP's been shut down. So how about all the people that are trying to get records on what's going on in the health budget? You can't get it because they shut down FOIP. Okay, in 2014, it becomes a comedy. It's like the Three Stooges. I can't believe it. In 2014, we and one of our lawyers, Chris Bolton, we met with the director of Southern Alberta Environment, Craig Knox, and the health inspector, Lou Scalonsby. We taped both meetings. We came out of there shaking our heads because they knew nothing. They were the directors. They were making $250,000 each. They told us directly, and we taped it. They do not inform the public of any water contamination issues. Walkerton, hello.
Yeah.
And they both closed the file, even though they had everything. Don't write. Don't bother doing anything. Okay, I've got something cute for you. It's called my Louie movie. It was my dog. Jason, could you please play that video for us? And you'll love the music, at least I do. My husband and I. Okay, that was professionally done. It is the beginning of the trailer for the movie that's being made for all of this. But the movie's going to have judicial, RCMP, all sorts of stuff on it. You can't go at our website because the government took our website down in no time at all. And again, that was thousands of dollars that I paid to put documents up, all the water tests. They wanted to make sure that nothing was seen, okay? In May of 2015, we gave $350,000 plus of expert reports and 5 years of water tests to Rick McClellan and Randy Sweeney of Alberta Environment. Why were we able to do that? Because we sent that video out, as you do, with emails that went out across Canada, a couple of thousand or more people. And from that, hundreds of letters went to Jim Prentice. And he went, oh my God, I better do something, right? So he went back to Alberta Environment and made them put an investigation on. So what the document of May 19, 2015 proves, because they confirmed it in writing, is this document is important because they proved they all knew. This is proof that their actions of ignoring the problem is deliberate. That's criminal negligence. If I hadn't had a written receipt and the email from the director of Alberta Environment say, thanks, we've got it, I couldn't prove that it was deliberate, but I can now, right? And the bureaucrats of Alberta Environment told Jim Prentice and his minister there was nothing to see here. We got an email. So another question. Who trained these bureaucrats to lie to the premier and his ministers?
You know, I have thoughts. I'm just waiting.
I know. Well, I met with Peter Guthrie at a number of times, actually. He's my MLA out here where I live. And Mr. Guthrie, and he was wonderful, he said to Les and I straight up, this happens all the time from the bureaucrats. They don't let the ministers know. Now we're going to move along. June 9, 2015, because this comes right to the crux of the matter. The director, Craig Knox, emailed me stating that our information will be given to, are you listening to this? Their contaminated site group, internal professionals, hydrologists, soil specialists, etc., to review for professional opinion. That email is document 6 in the points in the post. This document shows how incompetent or bought off Alberta environment is. Because
that's a big statement.
here it comes. On October 15, 2015, we received a letter from Mr. Clowes closing the file stating they can't find anything. They never even phone our 4 experts that I paid over $350,000 to, and their licenses, engineers, PNGs, LLBs are on the line for lying. We have 5 years of water tests, and they've given all this to their contaminated site groups of professionals, hydrologists, soil specialists, etc. They don't even call our experts. And this is what they say. They say, perhaps the contamination came from birds. Let's see. Our contamination was 450,000 colony-forming units, CFUs, per 100 milliliters of water. We had 33,000 CFUs per 100 milliliters of E. coli. And maybe it came from birds. I don't think so.
That's some big birds. Really big birds.
There is a big bird, remember? Maybe Big Bird had his family out there. But we also provided with a Ag P, his job for BC environment was calculating flow of contamination. And the flow off the riding club was 25,000 pounds of manure and 6,000 gallons of urine per year went into the water. That, did you see on the video, the black stuff and whatever? But it was birds, right? Okay, we'll let them have that, right? So the letter from the director of Alberta Environment shutting down the investigation, and the fact that he had everything, and the fact that he tells us that it's going to all their experts, proves how incompetent. And I don't believe they are. Now, it can be one of two things. One, the government hires incompetent people, and that's done all the time, right? Or they're bought off. Pick one, follow the money. Okay, now I'm going to look at current letters. Has anything gotten any better since we harassed Jim Prentice with that video? I went to Rick McIver, the Minister of Municipal Affairs. I went to Jason Nixon, the Minister of Environment. I went to the current Minister of Health. All ministers, including McIver and Nixon, state there's nothing to see here, and we never hear from them again. We write back and say, but wait a minute, Alberta Environment has all this information. They don't even phone us. They don't even phone our experts. They just let it go. Big question. What's going on, right?
Yeah.
In 2023, before the provincial election, the RCMP refuses to lay charges of criminal negligence. They've got 2 boxes of evidence of proof. Because in 2020, when I wrote to the Attorney General saying, help, he told us to go to the RCMP. We spent 2.5 years in meetings with them and provided everything. Got his definition of how we prove criminal negligence has to be beyond a shadow of a doubt. We had it all. He won't lay charges in 2023 before the election. Finally, they go silent. And I said, that's it. I can't be I won't call myself that, but the antagonistic person, right? And we find in all of the newspapers, which I've got them, before the election, Daniel Smith and the team tell the public they want to get rid of the RCMP. After the election, the Smith team state the RCMP will remain. Conclusion, this is cover-up of political liability and obstruction of justice. Ta-da! We've been in contact. Here's something very positive, because I know this is difficult. Look, it's difficult for me to write, say, and do. I've been in depression as I've been putting this together. We've been in contact with a fabulous investigative reporter who's doing research on the RCMP. We'll work with him with all our material and give it to him, because he's on to a whole bunch of other things that the RCMP have done. February 2, 2023, we sent a letter to all ministers, current ministers in 2023 of Daniel Smith government, with a copy to Daniel Smith, and we provide all the evidence. We never hear from them. I put that in your downloads for the last time I was there. So what is the cost to Alberta taxpayers to have Alberta Environment tell us, with over 350,000 of expert reports in their possession, that there's no contamination? It's like I'm mentally ill. And my 5 experts, and by the way, most of them are well in their 60s and 70s. They're out of the big firms. That's the only way you can get it done. To tell Jessica Ernst from Rosebud that there's nothing wrong with her water that she was able to light with a match. Remember that one?
Yeah.
To tell the people downwind from any feedlot in Alberta where there's no environmental reports, that there's nothing to see or smell here that's detrimental to your health. But by the way, there's no standards, right? To tell the people of Lochend Oil and Gas Project that they are imagining things, i.e. their animals dying, having stillbirths, and major health issues with their own health, but it didn't happen before the fracking started, right? This is huge. And it makes me want to cry, because the man who brought me this information, he's passed away. He got cancer. To tell 14,000 people on the High River watershed that the Rimrock Biodigester, that our government pension plan invested $150 million in with their partner Tidewater, that the Department of Environment gives approval to that without any environmental studies. The budget for Alberta Environment is $120 million a year. $120 million a year. 91 million is sent by the feds back to us. And we wonder why. I'm going to talk to the feds about what's going on out here, right? Document 7. You can look at it. I'm just going to read it. This is the mandate letter. By the way, guys, everything's on the internet. Ellen's not a genius here, okay? Everything's on the internet. You look up the minister on the internet. It has everything about them. And then below it, it has the mandate letter that Daniel Smith has written to them to give direction. And here's the letter to Sonia Savage, the Minister of Environment, dated November 9, 22. On page 2, Smith writes, and this is so important. You are to develop a government-wide environmental, social, and governance ESG strategy to demonstrate Alberta's world-class ESG credentials in order to gain and maintain the confidence of investors and to ensure that jobs in Alberta are created and defended. Thank you, Jason. You are to develop a government-wide social and government strategy to demonstrate Alberta's world-class ESG credentials. Just demonstrate them. Don't do it. In order to gain and maintain the confidence of investors. What's that all about? Here's our strategy. Give us money. And to ensure jobs are created. Smith does not say develop and implement. And by the way, nothing was ever done, even to develop one. Okay? I am a genius. I've tracked that down through my sources. I'm not that smart. I got a lot of smart people behind me. Okay, there's the environmental issue. That's criminal negligence. Now I'm going to go on to the court system. Remember?
Oh.
You came at me and said, where is the decision? I have it.
Let's go.
Okay. Through this lawsuit, and yes, I make this statement, and I make it boldly and strongly, we have the proof of corruption in the Alberta justice system. Good job we're not in the room. You might hit me, but I've got it. We filed a statement of claim July 10, 2020, Alan J. Satin. And here's what happened. So don't bother spending $250,000 in the court, which I did. I don't know what Jessica Ernst spent. I don't know what Jeff Colvin is spending. I don't know what our last health minister, as she defends herself, is, but don't bother. Move. Get out of the province. In order to go to trial, and I knew nothing of this when I started, both sides have to present expert reports. You can't go with one side, not with their piece of crap, right? We filed over $350,000, top PhDs, long list of credentials, and 5 years of water tests and 4 expert reports. Brownlee LLP represents the MD of Foothills. I want you to remember that because I'm going to talk about them in a minute. So let's get serious here. Jason, would you mind putting up document number 8 for me, please? Thank you. Okay, this is a letter, ladies and gentlemen, which you can't read, but it will be downloaded. It's a letter from one of my solicitors, Hugh Ham, to David Pick, who represented the MD of Foothills 31. And essentially what he says is, we've got no problem with you coming on the Alston property. You can come anytime you want. Unfortunately, he writes, and now I quote, it appears that Manulife Bank, and that's the bank that held my mortgage, consultants Waterline Resources and Aaron Drilling have stolen a match from your client and in the course of water testing have altered, if not destroyed, some portion or all of the evidence of the contamination of the plaintiff's well and potable water. And how did they do that? They did it because, he says in the next paragraph, guess what? Attached is a copy of the report provided by Waterline Resources. How did Ellen Alston get a hold of this? I phoned in and said, where's the report? It's my property. I have the right to have it. And the secretary of the lawyer representing Manulife Bank just sent it to me. It must have been an error, but there it was. They poured 10 liters of sodium hydrochloride into the water. And go to the second page, Jason, you just did it, of the report. And there it is. I didn't catch this. My PhD hydrologist did. The well services contract or Aaron Drilling poured approximately 10 liters of sodium hypochlorite, 12%. By the way, we can't even get that for our own use, into the well for shock chlorination and disinfection purposes. Excuse me, the owner of the property never gave permission to do that. Excuse me, I'm the only one that had the right to give the order to do that. And oh, by the way, just above it, on the little note there, note, a rusted threaded pipe used to disengage the existing pipe tubing from the pipless adapter was not reinstalled as per the well service contractor. They disconnected the well, so I couldn't pump the chlorine out and stop it from going downstream and killing people. That is criminal negligence. Have a nice day. All written to the lawyer of the MD of Foothills 31. And the lawyer said, while we would not anticipate that the county or its agents would similarly act in an irresponsible manner, we would appreciate being notified if your client still intends to test the well and aquifer. In other words, why the hell are you going? It's been chlorinated. Guess what? They went ahead and did it anyway. And then they never sent their expert report, even though they had a court order on them to send it. So can you go to court to get to trial? Do Form 37? Of course not. Now, why did that happen? I don't suppose the lawyers from Brownlee were talking to the lawyers with the to Manulife Bank, because right after Manulife Bank took our house, the MD of Foothills spent $1 million covering up the damage. So the bank could sell the property with non-disclosure. Have a nice day. Jason, would you please put up number 9? Because it's the decision, Kirk. Here it is. This is the court decision from the Court of Appeal. Date 2023-0207. Docket 2101-0237 AC. And what is this about? This is dismissal of our action. David Pick of Brownlee went to our case management, put in an application to dismiss our action based on Rule 4.31, which is unusual delay. And he lied in everything he wrote. But he lied about one thing that he couldn't get away with Justice Hollins. And that was, she knew that I couldn't get them to trial because she'd given him, Hollins had given Pick, an order to get in their expert report. Actually, she gave it to Pick and Drew Wilson, and they never complied. I get contempt of court for telling, according to the Environmental Protection Act, the counselors that there's contamination, but I got to pay $6,000 to even get back into court. And he never has to put in his expert report. And we realized, my expert said, Ellen, the reason he's not going to put it in is because it'll be full of chlorine. And it'll prove the chlorination of the well by Manulife Bank. So in the decision, we've got 3 judges that are questionable. And they talk about the allegations that I put in all of my submissions, that there are misrepresentations. That's a nice way of saying lies, right? And I put in there all of the documentation that has been put in by the Brownlee lawyers and the correct information. They then say that making these allegations are very, very serious and if they are true, there are huge consequences. But then they say nothing before us gives us cause for concern. And by this time I'm self-represented because my lawyers have all run away because I know what's going on in court, eh? And one set of lawyers, Spear Harbin, they were phoned and said, get off the file. So they quit with $150,000 of my money and quit in an email. So what did I have in the, and they also say, this is really, while counsel owe a duty of candor to the court, in other words, don't lie, right? They also have a duty to their client to present the strongest possible case. Messrs. Pick and Wilson have done no more than that. We dismiss your action. Love and kisses. You've spent all this money, all these years, and we don't care. So what happened? The MD could not win the case on the evidence because I had it all. So they file a motion for dismissal on 4.31, and they lie in every affidavit and every court hearing they attend. I had 8 to 10 people in the courtroom every time I presented, all with notebooks. Here's what happened. Brownlee lost in Queen's Bench because case management judge knew there was an order out for their expert report. Of course, they don't send it. But the Court of Appeal ruled that the conduct by Brownlee lawyers of lying to the court is of no consequence to the matter. All people get is the decision. This is now up on CanLII. And when you go for a book of authorities to go into court, you look for cases that match what you want. But what is not there is the affidavits and transcripts, which are hundreds of pages, right? And of course, I have all of it. We provided in the affidavits, sworn affidavits, multiple examples of lying by Brownlee. They said this, here's the document that's true. The letter from Hugh Ham proving chlorination of the well. That alone. That there's a court order out there. They haven't put in their expert report. And all the letters that our lawyers wrote giving the MD permission to go on the property to do the testing whenever they wanted. And Brownlee lawyers say we would not let them on the property. Everything's in the affidavits. And if you don't like that, you better like this. Transcripts are often altered to state what they want them to state. We taped the hearings, which we're not supposed to do, but it's the only way you can defend yourself, right? And then you get the transcripts. And guess what? The transcripts don't match. Now that's terrifying. So what does this prove? My statement. This proves judicial cover-up of criminal actions by government and public officials and obstruction of justice. And the same thing happened because I'm I told you I've moved on. I'm not just talking about poor Ellen Alston. We've got all the same legal information for the challenge that Jessica Ernst made against Ancana, ERCB, and Alberta Environment, the Rimrock Biodigester, the Lochend Challenge. I was in those meetings with all those ranchers who said, my cows are dying. And how about the firing of the councillors and mayor in Chestermere for requesting a full audit of finances before they got on council? They found millions of dollars of fraud. Rick McIver fired these men to cover up the money laundering throughout the government of all levels. And how do we know that now? Because when Peter Guthrie stood up and said, I want a full audit, they just got him out of that caucus so fast it'll make your head spin. And of course, we cannot forget the last CEO of Alberta Health, Anthea, forgive my pronunciation, Malethalopoulos, who is in court today defending herself against a defamation of character charge from the former CEO of AHS. Now, who would put him up to do that? And who would pay his legal fees to do that against Anthony, who stood up and said, as the CEO of Alberta Health, I think we got a procurement problem going on in the Alberta $26 billion budget. And what did they do? They fired her. Now we have definitive proof the courts will support whatever the government wants. We're in consultation with legal advisors, Kirk, for production of filed documents from multiple other cases proving the corruption in the Alberta justice system, because this has got to be exposed. Everybody talks about it. But I saw in our last show when I said the decision and you went, you got the decision, Ellen? Well, yeah, I do. And I've got everything else to do it. Okay, I'm going to take a moment to look at money. Follow the money. What is it costing Alberta taxpayers for no services in the EPA, municipal governance affairs, and Alberta justice? What's it costing? Almost 121 million, and that's a 22 budget. I couldn't get the up-to-date budget for the EPA. 91 million coming from the feds. Municipal affairs 2014, that's the only one I could get. 333 million for Rick McIver not to do an investigation for us, as we asked, of the council of the MD of Foothills 31, fired the council of Chestermere, 333 million in 2014. God knows what it's like 11 years later, right? Alberta Justice 2024, 428 million. That, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, is well over $1 billion for us to get no service. And that is without the audit of the Alberta $26 billion budget and all the salaries for the MLAs that will not stand up against the executive narrative, the UCP narrative, and all the paper pushers in the government doing ? I don't know. All right. These issues and many others, because I'm not the only one, were discussed at the Arrival of Accountability seminar in Red Deer, October 28, 2024. I provided a link to Jason in an email in my documents because I've been a member of a podcast. The guy's great, Levine. He's the one that filmed it. He sent it back to me because he wanted it sent across Canada. Have a good listen to what all these panel members have to say. They're doctors, they're politicians, they're lawyers, and Albertans who've been badly hurt by the Smith government. And finally, what's happening right now? William Makis, Dr. William Makis, this is ongoing right now, and it's huge. If you don't know who William Makis is, he's an oncologist. He's a top flight educated out of McGill University. I think he's 47 or 48 years of age. I've had lunch with him. I met him. I followed him for quite a while. He was out in Edmonton and he had a world-renowned radiology cancer program at the university, at the Edmonton Hospital. Trudeau and Notley came along and shut it down. What? We needed it here. And why did we do that? Because Trudeau wanted it in Vancouver, where he spent taxpayer dollars to rebuild it for private use, mostly for Chinese. And there it is today. So Makis went, wait a minute, that's my research. You just shut me down. They offered him $400,000 to go away, shut up and go away. God knows what he was making. And he developed that radiation program that was curing over 90% of stage 4 cancers. So he sued them. And they went after him exactly as they went after me. So rather than support Makis to help cure cancer, the Smith government has continually attacked him. It's not like we don't need his help, is it? There's an explosion of turbo cancers. And it makes no sense, as there's clinics in the United States doing the same thing that Makis is doing right now, which is curing heavy-duty turbo cancers with ivermectin, fenbenzidol, and menbenzidol. And these clinics are run by Dr. Pierre Corey, who wrote the book, A Case for Ivermectin, Dr. Peter McCullen, who is a top thoracic surgeon and has been speaking out about what's going on in medical, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, who has been speaking out for over 30 years, Dr. Christian Norbert, and more. So you can pick up the phone and do phone medicine with any one of these clinics. So why don't we have one here? Because the Alberta College of Physicians and Surgeons are not happy. In document 10 in the material that I provided you is an email that's just been released from 8 years of confidentiality court documents. Makis did it. And it's what happened to Makis from AHS to take his license. They took his license because he dared to stand up against AHS and the Alberta government for closing his leading cancer clinic, leaving, thank you, Jason, 2,500 patients without treatment, and most of them died. His license was taken by the College of Physicians and Surgeons for not paying court costs for he being defeated by the government lawyers lying in court. Let that sink in. He didn't lose his license because he killed people or wasn't nice or was a pedophile or was rude. He lost his license because he lost in court because the government lawyers did exactly what I've shown you they did to me. Again, this is evidence of judicial cover-up of criminal activity by the Alberta government and obstruction of justice. However, I bring this issue up because Makis is a thinker and he's prolific on social media. He's got 90 to 100 subscribers on his Substack around the world. And as he gets attacked by Daniel Smith and the College of Physicians and Surgeons, and I got on to him and I said, William, how do you know? He said, because all the emails in the affidavits came out of Smith's office, not out of the College of Physicians and Surgeons, out of Smith's office, that he had sent information to Smith like I had, reaching out saying, come on, let's do this right. So he's giving us insight into the depth of the problem, because a big question is being answered now. Why are they doing this? Not, as I said in my last podcast, this is just the agenda. Remember? No, why? No. It's far deeper than that. The UCP forced Makis through a court application to pay tens of thousands of dollars of costs for dismissing his lawsuit with no just cause. And the only way you can prove that, which we will, is through the affidavits like mine and the transcripts. And I want, as a side note, the court took my renewal pension income from 40 years of being an insurance agent for costs of my legal battle for Brownlee and another set of lawyers. They crippled me financially. They're doing the same to Makis. The UCP froze Makis' PayPal account, but because here's the only one time I can see where the letters work. Letters and phone calls went into Daniel Smith's office from around the world, not Alberta, because he's treating stage 4 cancers all around the world, because he's one of the leading experts, because he's a highly trained oncologist. The other clinics are not highly trained oncologists. If you want my opinion, where he will go is he will leave Alberta and Canada and join one of those clinics. The UCP have never stopped harassing Makis. And here's something that confirms what I previously said. Makis went to the RCMP for assistance because he was being harassed. They just declined him, just as the RCMP refused to lay charges. Proven criminal negligence against politicians and government employees for our case. And Makis put in affidavits and everything with the RCMP. We've got it all, everybody. The game's up. So, document 11, you don't have to put it up, Jason. It'll be in the downloads because it goes on and on. But God bless you, Wilhelm. He's Czechoslovakian. His real name is Wilhelm. He calls himself William. He came to Canada as a child, to Toronto. He answers the question of why is this being done to him. He's found out. Daniel Smith is pandering to Big Pharma. Go figure. Follow the money. This gives insight into our questions of. So bear with me, Kirk, because this is quite a list from our research. You're going to have more. Your audience is going to have more. Why would every environmental, health, energy minister of municipal affairs, premiers, and their department directors ignore the law and hundreds of letters sent to them?
Oh,
Why are there no environmental studies for all the feedlots? Hello? I've been on the internet for days. You can't get them. Why would Rick McIver refuse to do an investigation into the alleged financial fraud raised by 3 new councillors and the mayor of Chestermere? Never mind why, Rick, would you not investigate the MD of Foothills for criminal negligence and contaminating a public watercourse?
Alrighty. Well, Ellen, sorry, I'm interrupting you. I have to. I don't have a choice. Apparently, I have to wrap up very quickly. So, I have to bring this to an end.
Oh,
Sorry, the
All right.
punchline didn't actually get as far as we wanted to go. But for our listeners out there, this has been recorded, been broadcast. A lot of you would have got us through Facebook or I forget all the different X, whatever. And Alberta Radio, I think, is simulcasting it as well. But here's the deal. And I'm sorry, just to cut right down to the chase. It seems like the courts keep pushing off the greater public good. So if it's going to embarrass the government or the bank or whatever it is, they don't want you to be successful. It's going to embarrass the RCMP. They don't want you to be successful because it's against the greater public good. Well, from me to you, Justice, Alberta Bar Association, go jump in the lake. You're wrong. But just because I said it doesn't mean they're going to go do it. So what we're going to have to do is get together as a group and start asking for change at the different levels of government. And then come election time, make sure those changes take place. Ellen, I'm sorry we're running out of time. Maybe we can continue to do this a different time. But I want to say thank you very much for joining us. And for all of our viewers who are out there, do us a favor. The recording will be finished momentarily. Share it. Like it and share it everywhere. Put it in your timeline. Send it to friends. Let's get it out there because we've got to get this discussion going. Justice is not justice. Those who are supposed to be protecting us are not. Those who are supposed to be doing a job that we pay them for, they're not doing it. And that needs to change. Ellen, thank you very much.
thanks for your time, Kirk.
For me, I still don't know where Reddog is. I keep looking at my phone. I'm looking for pictures. Who knows where Reddog is? We're out. Have a good night.